Awesome. Great. Well, thanks guys for being on my wacky harebrained video podcast, whatever this might be. I started Pod of Madness a few months ago as a way to sort of shake things up in terms of accessibility to horror. And, you know, as a woman who loves horror, I've had some interesting experiences of not finding too many women involved in the genre. I could definitely be wrong, but that's one of my first questions. And I've talked to Owen before, Cargill, and we talked a little bit about this too with my harebrained idea for a Deborah Hill documentary, but that's a whole other side story. But wanted to talk about, since y'all are both in the genre, both in text and in film, a little bit about your experiences working with women in the genre, and if you want to name drop for me and everyone else to hear of some great women filmmakers in horror or writers in horror. I'd love to start the conversation out that way.
Oh, well, I can name, I'll jump in right now with just two of my favorite. I mean, these are my two of my favorite people working in film right now in genre overall, but they happen to be women as well. But Issa Lopez, who is the writer-director of Tigers Are Not Afraid, is brilliant. She's actually a brilliant writer, novelist, and a filmmaker, and I kind of moved into genre. I don't know if she knew she was doing such kick-ass genre, but Tigers Are Not Afraid is brilliant, and she's fabulous and just sort of a powerhouse of a personality. I love her. And then Jennifer Kent is another one. I think, you know, Babadook is maybe her most famous work, but I just am so impressed with what she brings to a film. She terrifies me. Those would be two that I think of. And then, of course, there's all these people who are not necessarily the writers or the directors, but who are doing incredible stuff too. I end up working with a lot of writers and people in my production. Like Eliane Fenton has been my cinematographer for two of my movies, and I just love her eye. She's got a great eye for things that are spooky.
The thing with the women in genre is there are so many of them, and the problem is they just don't get enough ink and attention. Yeah. And that's really where we are right now. Like, Owen mentioned Issa, who's just a wonderful human and is so freaking talented. But, you know, clawed her way up from telenovelas. Yeah. Like she was writing soap operas 20 years ago, and now she's finally gotten the recognition she deserves. But there's so many other women that I'm gonna leave so many out. But like Gigi Guerrero and Jen Wexler, the Soska sisters, Axel Carolyn, and Zelda Williams. There's so many women working today that we're just not paying enough attention to, and who are struggling, because, you know, the issue with genre is you are either very successful or there are two tracks from if you're not hyper successful. If you're a white guy and you're not so successful, you can typically keep working in the space, and your various friends can help keep getting you work. But if you're a person of color or a woman, you often end up being forced towards the television track, where it's very hard to break through. And once you kind of get put on that track, you can get work, but your name isn't getting out there in the same way. And so there's very much a struggle in the community right now to shine a light on all of these incredible women who are just not getting the work that they deserve. And Issa is one of the rare examples where she's, you know, finally Tigers Are Not Afraid was so good that the studios couldn't ignore her. And as a result, she's got a couple of different movie projects going on, the same way as a number of her white male compatriots have going on. But so many of the other women are struggling just to get noticed. And it's really a thing that we have to change.
This has always been the case. I mean, Cargill makes a really good point. Like, at some point there was sort of like, oh gosh, I guess, you know, I wish there were more women doing this. Now, there's always been women doing this. And as Cargill said, like, they just haven't had the spotlight or the ink spent on them. But it's even like the elements that we're still seeing it. I mean, the fact that we every year have how many Frankenstein movies based on a teenage woman's debut novel is reminiscent, like that's evidence. Or how about Shirley Jackson? You know, how about like, you know, Mike Flavin is an amazing filmmaker, but you know, Shirley Jackson gave us these stories that we're still retelling and everything like that. There's always been these women doing incredible things and telling terrifying stories. We just haven't given them enough attention in the spotlight.
Yeah. And hey, if y'all have a list of names of people that you think I should interview or that you want to get out there, please send me over those names too, that I am always looking, and I would love to be able to lend a hand where I can with women filmmakers and writers. So yes. And speaking of putting in connections, I suppose, that Cargill, something randomly, I just have to acknowledge that your assistant, Will Goss, I am pretty certain I'm related to him. I am really, really close. So my last name is Gospore, but I spell it Gass, and he spells it Goss, but we have a branch of the family that didn't want to be called Gas at some point, so they changed the spelling, but we're all from South Central Texas, so I'm pretty certain I'm gonna find. Yeah.
You're gonna find that missing link between you and my assistant.
Yes, that's my next thing on my list of things to do. But anyway, I thought I just would shout that out. But I don't want to leave the puppet there alone. He looks very sad and lonely. One of the conversations that I was hoping to have, I'm sure y'all are very familiar with the Puppet Master franchise, right?
Yes.
Okay, so did y'all see the latest in the installment that Fangoria did in 2018, The Littlest Reich?
Yeah, The Littlest Reich, yeah.
Have y'all saw that?
Yeah, it was playing at a number of different festivals. I had a film playing at a lot of the same festivals, so yeah.
It made me angry. And I just wanted to kind of walk things through too. Well, one, getting your thoughts on why puppets seem to be a figure of a lot of horror movies, even outside of the Puppet Master franchise. Because one of the things that has terrified me since I was a child is any sort of doll puppet ventriloquist dummy that comes to life. But getting your thoughts on why puppets, for instance, have sort of a bad rap in horror, and we can also have the puppet get involved in this conversation too.
Yeah, I might have a few thoughts on that, but I'll let you guys go first.
You know, it goes back to folk tales. It goes back to the story of the homunculus, and it goes back to the classic Jewish tale of the golem, that we create these things that are in our image, and invariably they get out of our control and have some malevolence to them in some way, shape, or form. And there are you know, stories of it going back thousands of years. One of my favorites comes from the Aboriginal Australians, where they have a thing about putting together a kind of golem-like creature made of dead wood and mud that then kind of loses control. And it's something that has always been kind of programmed into us to fear our own images or images that are somehow off like us. And it's rooted in that folk kind of tale. Like, we all have that. I have a story in which me and Jess actually moved into our house 2 years ago, and someone made a couple of years back made a Cargill puppet, and so I have a puppet of my own, and it was in my office, and I was like, well, you know, I'm driving some stuff over to the house across town. I'll just take the puppet over, brought it in, put it on the floor in my office, and Jess did not know this happened and came in a few hours later and sees this thing, like, with it, like, its head back, because I have it on the stand, and yeah, as our puppet is doing, and she sees it, she screams, she goes to run out of the house, and then in her head puts it all together, and it's like, that's Cargill's puppet. It's totally okay. It's okay. It's okay. She goes and peeks in, and she's like, "Oh, damn it."
I think it's also like it also has to do. Well, it's a little bit like clowns are scary too. It's the uncanny valley, right? You've heard of the uncanny valley, where it's like something almost looks like human, but something's off. And anytime something is off, it becomes uncanny. It's close to reality, but everything's slightly off. And there's some people who study this who say the reason we have this primitive fear of that is actually a fear of sickness, that we would see someone in our own tribe or own community, and we could tell, oh, there's something off about them. I don't know what, but there's something off. They're sick. My instinct is saying they're sick, and if I get near them, I'll be sick. And so we step away from that. I don't know if it's exactly true. I think it's more that we are kind of scared of ourselves if we see ourselves as other. other with a capital O, in which every one of us is in some way other. And so I think, puppets and dolls kind of fall into that. Also, they're meant to be objects of innocence, like a doll, a puppet. I mean, look at this cute little blue guy. They're objects of innocence. And any time an object of innocence becomes an object of violence, it's all the more terrifying, because we expect a gun to kill us. We expect a mean-looking fella to attack us. But when it's a cute little doll or harmless toy or a child, that becomes even more terrifying.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I was actually thinking that I think humans are inherently afraid of their own children. And I think that's really where the puppet thing comes from, is that like humans create the puppets, and then the puppets go out of control, and then they can't control them, just like humans make little humans, and then eventually they can't control those little humans anymore because they become their own big humans. I think that's really where this kind of inherent fear of puppetry comes from. It's nothing to do with us. We didn't do it. It's y'all's fault.
Oh, wow. Well,
It's
I do
very
fear my
insightful.
children. I do fear, yeah.
You're
Most people
smart.
fear. If you meet my children, you'd be terrified too. Cargill's met them. They're scary.
Oh my goodness. Well, I had said, too, that puppets or doll movies like Chucky, Child's Play, that whole franchise terrifies me to this day, that I keep saying that I want to do an episode where I can actually meet one of the dolls on the set of, because they're doing a TV series sometime soon for Child's Play, to confront my fear face to face with the doll. But I'm curious, in what movie disquieted you, terrified you as a child, that maybe there's still some lingering fears into adulthood that you may have?
I mean, I think Owen and I are going to have the same answer because we're roughly the same age. Poltergeist messed us all up as kids. Like, it was rated PG, so they could play that in the daytime, and they did.
Oh.
And that messed, like, you got a whole litany of things in there. You got scary trees, you got scary clowns, you got ghosts, you got a guy peeling his own face off. Like, that is a heavy, heavy trip to lay on a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah, Poltergeist is totally. I saw that in the theater, and I was with a friend, and I remember thinking, oh no, I shouldn't be here. I watched, like, Cargill might be the same experience for him too. Like, what? Sometimes people think like, oh, you write horror movies, you make those movies, so you're not scared of them. Like, no, I'm terrified of them, which is why I love them. I was just watching Hereditary last night. I'm still scared of that movie. I've seen it a bunch of times. I get scared, and I move, and I flinch, and I scream during movies. If I'm sitting next to somebody, I grab them, whether I know them or not. It's gotten me asked to leave from several different theaters. So everything. And I used to stay up late and watch the black and white films, Vincent Price and The Fly. Or I remember very clearly watching Night of the Living Dead the first time, like late at night, because it was playing on TV. And I was like, oh my God, when the little girl stabs her mother with the gardening, oh geez, it's just too much. And so I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for all those things, and they all stuck with me.
Yeah, I would also add in there, I was at a sleepover when I was 10 years old, and we were changing channel, and on HBO was playing A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was the scene in which Johnny Depp is on his bed. And that moment as a 10-year-old kid is forever burned in my brain. Like, that just messed me up. I could not sleep for weeks. I was crying. I called my mother. I had to go home. Like, it was bad.
You had to go home. I
had to go home, man. Imagine being 10 years old and Freddie's hand comes out of the mattress. You're not even safe on your own mattress in your own bed, pulls him in, and this gusher of blood just shoots. It's just,
so good.
It was too much when I was a kid.
And it was Johnny Depp too. You're like, oh, goodness great. And Jordan, maybe this is it too. Like, you were talking about, like, why are little dolls scary? Why are puppets scary to us? But like, horror has done a really great job, especially like in the 70s and 80s. But they would basically like take anything that was called safe, anything that the world was telling children, this is safe. And just like Americans had been learning, like, oh, we can't really trust our government. Look at Vietnam. We can't trust it. There's no good war. All these different things. We were starting to become cynical. We just sort of started dismantling through horror movies every safe zone. So like suburbia with white picket fences, that's not safe. That's where Michael Myers comes from, and that's where he's coming back to. Summer camp's safe. Like, oh no, it's not. No, it's not. Jason's mom is hanging out and there's a kid in the lake.
Spoiler alert.
Our dreams are safe. You know, we can have, no, we can't. Those aren't safe either. Like all the safe zones, even Johnny Depp's bed, there's no safe zone.
But so, like, speaking to that, how does Hellraiser fit in? Because like Hellraiser took something that's already terrifying and made it way more terrifying. Like there's nothing innocent about hell, and yet like somehow that movie made it way more scary than any church ever like made it to me.
Well, that's the interesting thing about Hellraiser. Why Hellraiser functionally works is Hellraiser's entirely about transgression, and it's all about transgressing and then earning yourself damnation. But why those movies work is that the people who are simply curious end up being considered to have transgressed. And so it's the idea that your curiosity could get you killed by these beings that will hunt you through eternity and torment you forever just because you were curious is scary.
There you go. Yep. You know, as a kid, the movie that really terrified me, and I think this is more circumstantial, I don't remember, it was either Troll 1 or Troll 2. I don't remember which of the two. But
Very
it was
different films.
Because Troll 2
Very
isn't
different.
scary.
Yeah.
well, it was the little door that terrified me, because my grandma had a little door in her basement. And so after I saw that movie, I was terrified to go to my grandma's house because of that little door in the basement.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a similar movie that kind of messed with me as a kid that had Drew Barrymore in it called Cat's Eye, where there's this little troll that actually breaks open the wall, goes through, and then the wall heals up.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh.
I love it. How I've sort of worked through my fear of especially the Child's Play movies as an adult is like, oh, it's a metaphor on capitalism. Like if I'm going to watch, it's like, oh, some more highfalutin idea that maybe they did mean or maybe they didn't mean, but like that's what it's about. It's not just the terrifying doll that will come and kill you and who is just really, really mean. But I wanted to go back to Hellraiser real quick, to shout out that I actually was not afraid during Hellraiser, and it's weirdly enough, I sympathized with Pinhead a lot, which is why I wasn't afraid of that movie. And just like, yeah, if I'm alone in sympathizing with Pinhead, I felt really bad for Pinhead.
I mean, by the end of Hellraiser 2, you're supposed to sympathize with them. The death of the Cenobites is actually showing, their origins. So there's nothing wrong with sympathizing with them. It's interesting that the concept of the Cenobites themselves is scary from the outside, but when you kind of look at it cosmically and the role they play, they're just dutifully doing what they think you want them to do. And that's the thing, is they think you want to experience the craziest stuff the universe has to offer, and you asked for it. So now we've got to give it to you because there is no safe word in hell. And so ultimately they're not bad dudes, but I still argue that they're bad enough dudes that my biggest problem, honestly, with Hellraiser is that hell is sexist. Because every Cenobite gets a name except female Cenobite.
Even in hell,
you
There's a
make
glass ceiling.
7 cents on the dollar.
But I think we have a new tagline for the next Hellraiser movie about there not being a safe word in hell.
There's no safe word in hell.
I want to watch that. Oh my goodness. Oh man. But I wanted just to take a step back real quick. So for folks that don't know that the two of you, Owen and Cargill, that you actually know each other and that you both live in Austin. Well, the three of you, I'm the odd one out. But how did y'all meet? I don't even know exactly how y'all met.
I don't even know how either. I don't think either of us can remember the first time we ran across each other. We both came up at the exact same time. He was a member of Master Pancake at the early Draft House. I was one of the early Draft House regulars who was a member of Ain't It Cool News. I was always at events. He was always at events. And we just kept running into each other until we finally learned each other's names. And then we both went on very similar paths as screenwriters and novelists. In fact, we joked about it. I think the ship has sailed on this. I think we're a little too old, but for years we talked about doing a fantastic debates where we argued who was the best screenwriter and novelist in Austin, where I would argue that it's Owen and Owen would argue that it was me, and then we would box it out. But I think that time is past.
It'll be like a Rocky V. We'll do it in an alleyway sort of thing.
Rocky V wasn't one of the good ones, though.
Well, that's true.
All right. So origin story, the first day that y'all met, sort of unknown. All right. But you've known each other for a long time.
Oh, we're talking like 2 decades. So it's like,
wow. Okay.
Which party we met at, which screening we met at. Like we were literally like, both part of the very early Austin Draft House scene. Like a lot of people don't realize the Austin film scene, a lot of it came together because of the Draft House. And the Draft House started as a purely repertory theater. So, they would only be showing stuff either in its second run or showing older movies. And so all of the film geeks would come out and go here. And I mean, this is so long ago that you could still smoke in the lobby. And so we would be standing in the lobby smoking cigarettes. And it was, you're all just packed in there. So everybody would get to know everybody. And it's like, who's that loud guy? Oh, that's Cargill. You just have to tune him out.
And who's that short guy? Oh, that's Owen.
That's Owen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, this is we've known each other so long, and then just both ended up, working at Blumhouse, and both ended up writing books, and we keep ending up at things. And then of course we had become good friends, and then people keep going, hey, we're having an event. And we want Austin filmmakers. Can we have you and Owen? And it's like, yeah, sure. We can.
It does happen a lot. But it was a really cool time of like, I mean, as like Cargill was saying, that old Alamo, which was, just one screen, a lot of times the movies cost $1. And then you'd also get like Quentin Tarantino kind of loved the place, and he would be filming in town, and he'd be like, I gotta bring everybody inside to see this random movie from 1970 that I just love, and put it on the screen. And then also, he would do these like all night long things sometimes, and it was just like a lot of geeks, getting together and just sort of enjoying each other's company and sharing stuff like, oh my gosh, you haven't seen this movie. And this was a time when there wasn't Netflix, there wasn't a way to stream it. This was before YouTube. So people would be like, oh, here is a VHS copy of this movie, Trolls 2, for example. Like, you're going to see Trolls 2 now because I'm handing you a copy of it that I stole from Vulcan Video.
It's interesting. A lot of this community came together from a thing called Weird Wednesday that was very different then. Because what originally happened was Tim League had bought 200 different movies from a closed drive-in, and he didn't know what shape they were in. So every Wednesday night,
or what they were. Some of them didn't have labels.
Yeah. So at midnight, every Wednesday night, they had a free showing, but there was no promises if it was any good. And so we would just show up on Wednesday nights to watch whatever. And sometimes it would be something really cool. Sometimes it would be something goofy like Super Fuzz. And then sometimes it would be an unwatchable comedy like Can I Do It Until I Have to Wear Glasses? That's only notable because it's the first appearance of Robin Williams on film. It's like you would just see weird stuff like that. And then sometimes you'd walk out groaning with the rest of the audience going, that was terrible. But then you talk about it for 20 minutes outside. And then sometimes you would really see these amazing gems that you'd have to run out and tell your friends, oh my God, you have to find this thing. And that's really kind of the genesis of where a lot of the Austin film community of this generation got to know each other.
All right. I just got a pop-up message telling me about my free Zoom account that we have 10 minutes left because this is what happens when you're a journalist and you don't pay for the premium account. But I did want to also discuss, because you talk about the interconnectedness of Austin, and I know that Cargill, for instance, that you have a project in the works that was announced, I think a few months ago, correct, with Elijah Wood, who also has a residence in Austin, and I feel like everybody has met him at some point, and he is the nicest celebrity I have ever had the pleasure of interviewing. Was super nice, but wanted to throw it at you if you wanted to talk a little bit about that project that you have with him. I just know Ted Bundy, FBI agent.
Yeah,
Floor's
yeah,
yours.
yeah. No, Elijah is super down to earth and a hardcore film nerd, and so he's been coming to a lot of the Draft House events for years as well. And so like most of the film community knows him by on a first name basis, and he knows them because he is one of the nicest guys. Yeah, this is it's a weird little film that I'm really proud of. We'll see. We just wrapped shooting. We're going to see how it comes out in the edit because you never know. But it's essentially the true story of an FBI agent named Bill Hagmaier who became Ted Bundy's best friend. And in the and a large half of the movie is about how they got to know each other and how that relationship developed over the course of years. And then the other half is about the last 7 days of Ted Bundy's life and all the weird things that he tried to do to wiggle out of the electric chair. And in the course of that last week, Bundy admitted everything to Bill. And like, he just laid it all out, like how he did it and what he did. And the thing is there have been a lot of movies and a lot of media made about Ted Bundy. And one of the things that bugged me a lot was that it's all kind of selling the myth of Ted Bundy and kind of glorifying him in a certain way. And the deeper you dig into the story, you realize there's nothing to mystify here. There's nothing amazing about him. In fact, I honestly believe that if Ted Bundy were born, in the 70s and were a serial killer today, he would have been caught after his first or second attempt. He wasn't that good. He was very good for the 1970s when states didn't talk to each other, police departments didn't talk to each other, and the FBI hadn't taken over coordinating those. And that he was a very sad and angry guy behind the scenes. And I wanted to deconstruct the monster and write a piece about like that you got to the end where, a lot of people have gone in reading the script going, does anyone want to make another Ted Bundy movie? And then they get to the end of the script and they go, oh, well, I never need to see another Ted Bundy movie, but this is the one that I needed to see. And so that's the hope of what we'll accomplish, is that we deconstruct that myth and lay out. And it's done almost entirely based upon FBI transcripts and audio recordings and the recollections of Bill, who was in the room with Ted. And so this isn't somebody else's recollections. This is literally the guy who was in the room laying out who Ted Bundy is. And so Elijah is playing Bill. I don't think we're allowed to talk about who played Ted, but I'm really excited. It's a very exciting choice that when people see it, they're going to be kind of floored by how much the performance feels authentic. So I'm very excited to see how this comes out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And Owen, that you have Mercy Black that's on Netflix. And what else do you have going on in the works? Anything in between our last conversation?
Yes, but I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Of course not. Of course. Well, when you are allowed to talk about it, let me know.
I will. Yeah.
And Cargill, I was telling Van, our lovely puppet over there too, that you should just whisper in Elijah Wood's ear that he should do a story time for children at the Austin Public Library. I think it would be a very nice, sweet thing.
I will mention it to him. I saw that he put his house up for sale recently, so he just had a kid, and
yeah, I saw
he's in LA, and so he may just be like, you know what, I think I'm just gonna do the LA thing now, which would make me sad, but we'll see. But I know his brother still lives here, so he'll still be visiting, so I will put that bug in his ear.
Yeah, and if he ever wants to come on the Van Show and talk to me, I'm more than happy to. I interview mostly authors and illustrators, but I'd be more than happy to talk to an actor.
Oh, no. Elijah does not talk to puppets.
What?
No puppets.
He's a species.
He's a puppetist, yes.
He's a puppetist, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I do, so
that's a real shame.
Really? I have 5 minutes left.
Oh.
Before the Zoom will kick everyone off. So I just wanted to have my closing remarks just as a thanks to y'all. And my last final question to each of you is that if you could be any horror movie villain, who would it be? I'm gonna be Pinhead, because I said I sympathize with Pinhead.
Jeez.
This includes you, Van.
A horror movie villain. That's really.
I would pick the black slime from Creepshow because it wins in the end.
It does. It does.
I guess I'm gonna go with Larry Talbot, the Wolfman, because he's so tortured the whole time, and I don't want to kill people, but I keep killing people. I can relate to that.
Sympathetic, yeah. See?
You know what? I'm gonna take an oddball choice. I'm gonna go with Julian Sands Warlock.
Oh,
That is a stretch. Yeah, but there you go. There you go.
I mean, first of all, you get to look like Julian Sands because that is a beautiful, beautiful man. But also the Warlock. The Warlock was a pretty cool villain, and I'm surprised those movies have not stayed in the consciousness.
yeah.
How
Maybe
many are
time
in
for
the
a reboot.
series?
I know there's at least 2. I think they may have continued without Julian Sands, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
I just recently realized there were 4 pumpkin heads.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think 2 and 3 count as video. I think they were video games and are counted in the series, but I don't know.
I read that too, but it turns out I think they went straight to TV, and then they also had video games, but they were actually movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I kind of just did a dive in it recently.
was it Christopher Lambert? Wasn't he the Warlock? Am I totally off base? No.
The Julian Sands was the Warlock. And then the guy who fought the Warlock is still around. He's from Withnail and I, and really popular on Twitter, and I'm blanking out his name all of a sudden.
Well, y'all two have connections with Blumhouse, so I think a remake. Y'all should be talking about writing a script for a remake to Warlock.
Let's do it.
There you go. All right. Well, thank y'all very much. And yeah, we got 2 minutes, so I just want to say as well to be able to send me those recordings via email whenever you get the chance to, and I can start putting this all together.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, let me know if y'all have any questions. And Cargill, yeah, tell Will I'll circle back with him too, not just because I think we're related, but for logistical reasons as well. All right.
I hope you're related to Will. That would be wonderful.
I'm assuming he's a nice guy. He seems nice through email. So there you go.
Totally nice guy.
Awesome. Well, y'all have a good night, and I'll see y'all soon. All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
This was super fun.
Bye.
You shouldn't believe in everything you see in the movies.